Welcome to, I guess, officially day 2 of High Point Market. Welcome to Universal Furniture. My name is Neil McKenzie, Vice President of Marketing here at Universal, and thank you so much for coming to the Learning Center. We've had a number of events and have a number of events left here. We are also recording all the events, so if there's something you signed up for or there's something that you had to miss, please, you'll have recordings of all the events probably the week of the 31st at the same place that you registered, and we'll send out an email as well. If it's your first time to the building, welcome. If you're coming back, thank you so much. If you want to explore any of what we have on really the entire showroom, we have a new collection with Aaron Valensich on floor 3. We have a new collection on floor 1 called Nostalgia. We have some new special ordering offerings that are all shipping in 8 to 10 weeks. There's tons to see. There's also the Designer's Lounge, complete with beauty bar this afternoon, so if you need a hair touch-up, feel free to go take advantage of that or any libation that you may need to get you through the rest of the day. Just check in at the front desk before you make your way through, and they'll get you set up. And then we also have everything in the showroom tagged. We have these scanners that you can actually scan anything that you like, so scan everything. And then when you check out, you'll actually get an email with everything that you scan, so it just makes your shopping experience a little easier. So we are so excited about this panel. This has been like top secret stuff, so I think there's a lot to be uncovered here this afternoon or this morning. I'm going to introduce Caitlin Peterson, Editor-in-Chief of Business of Home, one of the best in the business. So Caitlin, I'll let you take it away.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I just wanted to second what Neil said. If you have not explored the showroom before, it's pretty extraordinary. There's so much to see. There's so much variety. And it's really, really a treat to walk through the building. So make sure you find time to come back or do that right after you leave because you're in for a special treat. I am so thrilled to introduce this panel. With me today is Gail Doby, whose incredible coaching and consulting business was recently rebranded as Pearl Collective. Nadia Roberts, I'm going out of order, is the principal of the recruitment firm Interior Talent. And Alyssa Grayer is a New York-based designer who made her first hire about a year ago.
No.
Oh, wait.
Sorry.
No, did I get that wrong? And it has subsequently hired 5 people in the last 6 months. I got that right, correct?
Yes, you got that right. But my first hire was probably 19 years ago.
Sorry. I don't know where I got that from. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
5 people in 6 months, though. We're going to talk about that.
Yes. And a lot of them are sitting in the back right there, so they're going to be listening to everything I say.
How does that feel, by the way?
What? We'll talk.
The root of our talk today is a survey that Gail and her team conducted this summer. They surveyed more than 900 interior designers to take the temperature on the industry when it comes to fees, salaries, and competing for talent in today's marketplace. And the findings, if you can boil it down, really oversimplify it, illuminated that for most designers, business is booming, firms are feeling the pressure to grow, to keep up, and hiring and retaining talent is really, really hard. Is that a fair assessment?
Very fair.
In addition to analyzing and gathering all of this data, Gail, you are on the phone with designers day in, day out, helping them grow their businesses. For you, when you looked at the results of the survey, what truly captured sort of the mood of the moment? What were the findings that you thought, this totally validates what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing day in and day out?
Well, there's so many things. And right now, it is one of the tightest markets ever in terms of hiring. And our partner, Interior Talent, we've got Ken and Nadia here with that Interior Talent. And we decided to partner up on this because this is such a big deal this year. And we were seeing that the whole industry has really shifted it. And who knew that through the pandemic that we would end up having probably the biggest boom year that we have ever had in the industry. And then with that, it's trying to get, of course, product. But then the biggest part is being able to do the work. And we have to have people to do the work. And so finding qualified people, knowing how to pay them, especially in a very competitive market. We had a panel yesterday that Ken and I did, and we talked a lot about what it's going to take to hire and keep people this year. It's overwhelming how much this has really impacted so many of our firms that we work with. And it takes longer to hire and find really good people, and sometimes you don't know if they're really qualified to do the work. So, yeah, we're finding out a lot of really interesting things as a result of this, yes.
Were there, when you talk about the salary piece specifically, were there pain points that came up again and again and again in this survey result that sort of also echoed what you've been hearing from clients?
Well, I think the pain points are people don't know how to compensate today because the compensation is shifting so much right now, and I think Nadia could probably speak to that a little bit better. But honestly, it has been very competitive, and in order to hire and keep people, it's becoming more and more difficult, I think, for a lot of the firms to feel comfortable with what they're having to pay because it is really such a big departure from where it's been.
Yeah. Nadia, I know when we were preparing for this talk, we were talking about what a different hiring market this is than 5 years ago or 2 years ago. What do you see designers sort of getting wrong in their initial approach when they're thinking about onboarding a new team member? Not to go with a super negative right off the bat, but
no. I think that it's a very heavy focus on compensation, and what we tell our clients is you have to find out the motivators. There's more than one piece of the puzzle for each person. So compensation, yes, you have to be competitive, you have to have something that is going to attract somebody in, but you also have to understand individually, is someone looking for flexibility? There's so many components, and I think it sounds, holistically, people are approaching from a candidate standpoint too, what they're looking for in a position very differently. And I think that's been the biggest impact in COVID. It's not just, I'm gonna jump ship, I want a new job. It's really, I wanna be valued, I wanna respect who I work for, and I want them to respect who I am. So you have to take the time in an interview process to dig in and find out what those motivators are.
what does that require from a firm? What kind of work does a firm have to do before they start looking for a candidate that maybe didn't have to happen before? What do you have to know about yourself?
I think the firm really has to know what their DNA is and who they are and articulate that really clearly to a candidate. It also, you have to spend some time in the interview process. It's not just a one interview, a Zoom, and away you go. There's many, and I think we're so busy that sometimes you just need to get someone on board. But it's really understanding the person, making sure they understand how they fit into your organization, what is their impact. And we have, as a simple point, we always say it's a culture add, not a culture fit. So you have to also be in this market open to, you may not check 10 out of 10 boxes. Maybe you checked 7, and you got to work on the other 3 and figure out how that goes in your organization.
What do you talk a little bit more about culture add? Because I think that's such a huge mindset change for so many people. What does that look like, or what's the work you have to do to think about that?
I think with probably most people in this room are from the survey results, we're smaller companies, so you have 3 or 4 people, and you think, well, I need someone that's just like my senior designer, or this person knocked it out of the park. Where you have to really think about what are we looking to achieve now in 2 years and 5 years, and what are some unique skill sets we can bring in, and then be really honest with what time and energy do you have to train? Because the biggest thing that we saw that results in hires not working out is there isn't the investment of time of training and onboarding. So you have to be honest with yourself as an owner, as a leader in the organization, how much time do we have to invest? And then can we look for someone that is maybe a little different than we thought that will bring something new to the table? So that's what we say culture add. You're not trying to fit one person, you're trying to bring something new and a new talent to the organization.
I love that way of thinking a lot.
Yeah, you've got to go out of your DNA a little bit, right? You know your core. We always say you have to know your core values. That's really important. But you have to be willing to bring in people that maybe you wouldn't think would be a fit.
Alyssa, I want to touch on your experience because your firm's growth mirrors this survey's findings in a lot of ways. What prompted your recent hiring, and how was it different than the hiring you've been doing in the past?
Well, we are a team of 12, and we had been, though, for a while, about 6 people. And we had a lot of work during COVID, as many of you did. And by the way, let me just say, these Universal bar stools are really comfortable. And one thing that we love about Universal is all their in-stock products. So if you're ever in need, they have stuff for you, which is great. I think that as everyone's firms grow, and as your DNA, which is obviously there the whole time, really develops and coalesces, you begin to see that some people are not culture fits for you, and they are not adding anything. They're taking things away. People move. People get pregnant. They go away. They take a different job. So there's always turnover, which is really disruptive to a firm, but it happens, it's life. So we were incredibly busy. We were down 2 employees. We were at, 6 people doing an insane amount of work and couldn't even lift our heads up to hire. And then it just became too much. So we really went on a mission to hire some senior designers and some designers and design assistants.
How do you push pause enough to kind of look up from that workload and invest the time and the effort to hire correctly?
We had a moment. Like there was, we're working head down, and then we finished some projects and we're like, this is ridiculous. We can't keep up this pace. And Gail, who I work with, who I credit with all of my success, really was like, you need to do this. You're gonna all burn out. You gotta do it. Yep. So we did.
I want to come back to your story in a second, but Gail, for you, like, how do you talk a designer through that moment of saying,
how do you talk them off the ledge, Gail?
No,
it's not easy.
Maybe off the ledge, but also, what kind of tools can you give someone to say, like, you need to do this now, and here's how you make room for this in your business now?
Well, a lot of that comes from just understanding what's going on financially for the company, and also what is their pipeline. If they have a huge pipeline that's starting to build up, then the role of someone like me is to look at it and say, hey, you've got to make a change because you can't do this. And if you burn your people out, they'll leave. And so it comes down to, it's just reality. You have to make a shift. And sometimes you need that little extra kick in the butt to just actually do it, because it is so hard to take your eye off the ball of the work that you've got in-house, but you must do it. And the job of the owner is to step back and really look at it from the 30,000-foot view and say that for me to grow this firm and for me to continue to serve my clients, I cannot do this without a reasonable staff, because you're going to drop balls.
Yeah. That was the perfect detour. So anyway.
And that was happening for sure. I was acting as a senior designer as well as the principal. And so we decided we needed to hire. We had hired an HR firm. And they put out ads, and they were, we were getting some candidates, but there is a group out there that Gail recommended that actually has their fingers on the pulse of a lot of designers in certain areas. And so we decided to work with them, Interior Talent. They actually go to firms and recruit, which is really what I wanted. I wanted somebody who was already working, maybe didn't love their job, didn't love the culture, didn't love the hours, didn't love whatever it was, didn't love the work, and wanted to make a move. Yeah. Or the other candidate I was very interested in was a sole proprietor who was kind of done running the business, who wanted to be part of a team and part of a family and have all the admin stuff taken care of for them. So those people are hard to find on your own. You could Instagram post and Facebook post and, do Indeed and all that stuff, but you really need someone kind of trained to help. So these guys are an amazing firm, not cheap, but you have to make an investment. So I'm sure they'll tell you the way they work is they take a percentage. They're recruiters, so they take a percentage of the salary that you're willing to pay people. But they do bring amazing candidates to the table. So we were able, through a combination of our HR team that was placing ads on Indeed, so the passive search, and then the active search, to really start bringing on people. And what happened to us is we started getting a lot of great candidates. And you're not going to say no to an amazing candidate when they come across your path. So that's kind of how we started growing. And we really did need to add that many people based on the volume of business that we were doing. And it allowed us, myself, I have a bunch of people in the back there, but all of our senior kind of management level people, it allowed them to stop being senior designers and start actually doing the job that they're supposed to be doing. Like, Director of New Business Development sitting in the back, who was managing 3 projects because that's what he had to do. My creative director, design director, she was managing a bunch of projects. So she's now able to kind of step back. So it was really important that we hire. It was hard to hire, and we actually made a couple of mistakes along the way. We hired probably too quickly, and one of the people that we hired was not a culture fit. After a while, we realized it. Not only was she not a culture fit, she she just wasn't a good designer. So we found out that there were some things that were wrong, and we had to let her go. But that's kind of part of the process. You have to expect that. It's not all going to be perfect. But, we just decided we need to do it. And one thing I would say about your having things as part of your company, that not just compensation, which I think I'm in the New York area, so our compensation is high. Just going to say that. We had a candidate who was lovely. She interviewed with us, and she said, I really want to come work with you, but I have another offer on the table, and they want me to tell them today if I'm going to take the offer. And she said, but, I like your firm better, and the other firm wanted her to start like tomorrow, and she wanted to go on a trip with her husband that she had planned, months in advance to Paris, and she wanted to start in 3 weeks. And I said, fine, start in 3 weeks and go on your trip, and I'll match the salary. And she was like, done. So you kind of have to know what they want and what they need. And she's great. So interior talent.
Were a lot of the conversations you were having with candidates different than the kinds of conversations about salary, about benefits, about flexibility than you had had in the past? Yes. And what did that look like?
Well, in the past, we all worked in the office 5 days a week, not even a question. That's just what you did. During COVID, we all went home, and we worked at home for, months, a year, basically, and then started coming in. We all found that we loved working at home. So we created a schedule where we were in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we work from home Friday and Monday. And if you're sick, or if your kid is sick, or whatever it is, we work from home. So, well, obviously when you're sick, but people that, and the problem with COVID is even when you're sick, you can work from home. So there's never really that fun sick day anymore, but or snow day for that matter. There's none of that. So we kind of continued that flexibility, and we found that people really liked that. So that was, something that was important to people. And as far as salaries go, I hadn't really thought about salary in a long time because I had these long-term employees, and I wasn't really thinking about the market. We were just paying them. Then all of a sudden, we started to get these candidates who were coming in and asking for
a lot of money.
A lot of money, and I'm thinking, and one of the things I know you wanted to talk about is how was my compensation, my thinking about my compensation affected when I started looking at all these people who wanted all this money, and I was like, wow, things have changed. And so I
did you also have the moment where you were like, I'm underpaying myself?
Well, I'll tell you how I knew I was underpaying myself. Yeah. I always said. But as an owner, you put the money back in the company, right? Mm-hmm. You're like, I'm not taking a salary. This is my life. I put it back in the company. I went to go lease a car, and they said, let us see your W-2s. And I gave them the W-2. They're like, you don't qualify to lease a car. I'm like, what are you talking about? I have this company, there's all this money in the bank, and I have this. And they're like, oh, we're sorry. Well, it doesn't look like that. So I said, this has got to change. So I started paying myself more. But also, our whole salary scale went up. And all the people that had been working for me previously, I basically doubled their salaries. I mean, I was like, this is, and also a living wage these days is very different. Junior designers in New York City, in that area, you could pay like 45, maybe 50. Now you can start them at 50, but you feel terrible doing that. And so you right away kind of bump them up, and it goes up, up, up. And if you're paying, so your whole salary scale shifts, and that's a whole consideration. And then, health insurance and 401k and all those benefits that people kind of take for granted now, that's also part of the package. So as Gail will tell you, the burden cost of the employee goes up. But they make up that money for you because they're working and they're billing hourly. So that's how it all works out.
Nadia, does that track with what you're seeing kind of at large? And what are some of those sort of beyond the paycheck itself benefits that are really important to candidates who are looking for a new role today?
Yeah, I mean, that definitely tracks. And I will say a lot of clients don't do that. They don't raise their existing team. So kudos, because it becomes really tricky. They say, well, I want to bring in someone great, but I'm only paying X for my current person that's been there 5 years, and it is difficult. And it's hard to justify that. But that's honestly exactly what you have to do is just look at your existing team and more from a retention standpoint. And even if you're not doing a giant bump, just the act of coming to your employee and saying, hey, I'm aware of current market rates and I'm going to bump you up because we're seeing what incoming. It goes so far for loyalty and all those things. So That absolutely tracks. And I would say that it's not just that people, to answer your question, are looking just for the money. It's definitely flexibility 100%. We're seeing hybrid schedules as a norm, and I think we all agree in design, you definitely want to have those days where you're coming in collaborating and there's team, and you can't have that synergy over Zoom. You certainly need to have a component of in-office. But it's the balance, right? I think the days of expecting someone to come into your organization for $60,000 and work as you do as an owner, just because they're so excited to be in design, like those days are not here anymore, right? Mm-hmm. I think everyone's looking for a little balance and has interests outside of work and family, partners, relate things that matter, and they don't really want to work till 8 o'clock at night when they're 25 or 28. I mean, it's just...
We were talking about, when we were preparing, we were talking about like that expectation, right? You had somebody, I think a client who said like, oh, my team member like left at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, we had a client that, beautiful work, great studio, and it got really upset that one of the more senior people was like booking, whether it was a creative class or something after work, and it was outside of the posted offer letter hours. And we always have to remind them, like, this is your business, and of course you work a ton, and certainly we all know there's higher level project managers, studio directors, there comes a time when you're in a deadline, it's a given, I think, in any business that you put the time in, but to expect a new person to come in and work every day till 7 o'clock, or feel like they have to skirt out of the office if it's like 5:30 when that's their hours, is just really unfair. So I think candidates really want to work hard. It's not about, we always say it's not about the amount of hours. You can sit at your desk till 7 o'clock at night, but what are you doing? So it's more about changing your mentality of deliverables. Like, what do you need this person to do? If they can do it in 4 hours or 5 hours, some certain part of a project, why are they penalized? They're more efficient. It's creating a culture of efficiency and deliverables and things where you can track and have metrics, but you're not so worried if someone pops out for a doctor's appointment or they have to, because they're getting their job done. And it's like treating people like they have pride in what they do and they're giving it their all and not being so like tracking every minute. Yeah. Outside of course billable hours, so.
Gail, what does that require from a designer, like a principal of a firm, to shift their culture, to shift their approach, to really give employees that flexibility?
This is really hard because I have watched firms who are very meticulous about you've got to be in and sitting at your desk working at 8:30 in the morning, and you're working till 5 o'clock. You don't leave a minute early, or actually they expect you to work later, and you cannot do that today. It is a different environment, and the hardest thing is to make that shift in the thinking process for some of these owners. And I will tell you that I've had conversations multiple times with some of these people and say, this is not the way things are going today. So just let up a little bit and let that
any
person,
day, really. It shouldn't be that way. Any day, any year, any person.
It really has changed a lot. There is no such thing as being that maybe micromanaging about the time you need to learn.
Regimented, right?
Right, because then you feel like as an employee that you're part of you don't want to be in jail. You're here to serve, and you're here to help develop the business and to do what you love to do. But you have to remember that as an owner, it's really about finding that right balance. And you were talking about it earlier. I think it's really important to understand we're looking for results and not hours.
Yeah.
And if you can shift that thinking from results to hours, and that you know what your deadlines are, and if you need to stay a little late, you'll stay late, or come in early, or do whatever you need to do, I think people are really responsible. And just be sure that you're sharing that with your employee, what the deadlines are and what needs to get done by when. And as long as you're clear about that, then you're going to have a happier employee. So that's just my view on it.
I say you're nodding on. I hear.
Yeah, I would say two things. First of all, I think that in our firm, family comes first, and if your kid is sick or you have to go to your health, anything that you have to do, you do it. It's just, yes, the work will get done, and it's not as important as life. And staying healthy and going to a gym after work and you make an appointment, that's important. You've made the commitment. I applaud that. I need to do that. I don't. But anyway, I love people that do. But what I would also say is, working with Gail and tracking hours. That's a big issue that we've been talking about lately. So if you are in a little bit of a slow period, and I've been trying to work on my team with this, I don't want them to just stretch out billable hours just to fill the 8 hours, which is important. I need it, but I would like them to use some of those hours to do something, to learn something. Or, I don't know, go to a showroom and just explore. So yes, you're tracking hours, but not every hour has to be on a project, billable to a client. So, because tracking hours it's a pain. It's, it is, but.
How do you encourage that in your team? How do you communicate, like, this is, like, please do this?
I just keep telling them. I'm just like, please, go do it. Because, and we try and talk about it and make it a culture thing and be like, hey, I'm going to the city. Do you want to come? Who wants to go to this event? We can go to the design building beforehand. Don't just, source on the computer. Go on out and, do things. So
that's part of retention too, though, because that is part of the things when we talk about retention is always people growing. So whatever that is. So there always has to be time. Like we do a lot of lunch and learns in the office. We just order in food and whatever it might be on. But that's what candidates look for too. They want to feel like there's an encouragement to grow and learn. And maybe through those experiences, they'll take something, an initiative in the office on for themselves. And so really great things happen when organically you set that time that it pays dividends. But sometimes it's hard to do.
And also to encourage them to be part of the design community. I mean, I've had people who work for me who said, oh my gosh, my other boss would never bring me to an event. Right. And I'm like, but that's what it's all about. It's about, all of us together and learning and like seeing things and seeing how fun it is. It's not just about sitting at your office and, bending over your computer. So
I'm glad you said retention because I think that's kind of an important part of this conversation, right? Yes, we're talking about hiring, we're talking about salaries, but in theory, you don't want to have to be hiring all the time. What does it take to help someone feel fulfilled in their role today? For all three of you, like what have each of you seen?
I can jump in just because we talk to so many candidates every day.
Who are not fulfilled, right?
Yeah, well, we're not fulfilled. Or actually, if we reach out to them and they are very fulfilled and don't want to leave their position, it's also really interesting. We always ask why, like what's keeping you where you are. But the retention, I think from like hiring for growth is what's exciting. Hiring because someone great left is a terrible position to be in. So, there's a lot of like equations for it, but really you start year 2 is when you really start getting the return on the investment for an employee because they know your clients and all those things. So it's really expensive when someone leaves you after 2 years, never mind 6, 10 years if they've been with you. But retention, it's interesting because people think about it a lot for new hires and they sometimes forget about their existing team and they get really comfortable like, oh, that person would never leave or we don't have to, So it's as simple as starting out, making sure with everybody on your team, you're doing a stay interview. You're sitting with them every 90 days and how are you feeling about things, anything you want to take on, any initiatives. Just kind of a check-in, and we do ours really casual. We encourage our clients. It doesn't have to be a formal. It's not a written. It's like a coffee or standing at the desk. So it's that. Also, from onboarding standpoint, I think a mentorship program is often really overlooked. And even in small companies, you just get a senior person. They don't have to be in the same. It actually works really beautifully sometimes when it's a marketing person and a junior designer. Just having someone tie into your culture, because at the end of it, they have to wake up in the morning and feel like what they bring to your company is really valuable and they'll be missed if they're not there, because everybody wants to feel that way. You want to feel like you have a purpose and what you do. And so it's also the ownership explaining where is the ship going and what is your part in it and how important that piece is to make sure we all row together and get to the same spot, because everyone loves a team. I think most people that come into design, it's collaborative, it's creative, you feel good about that. So retention isn't always about money and raises. It's really more about people leave when they tell us they don't feel valued, number one. So if you can value your employees.
And I would also say, I think it's important to show a path to growth and advancement, increase in title, increase in salary, increase in responsibility. So if you can kind of lay that out so that there's, you can start as a design assistant, you're going to move to an interior designer. What are the skills that you need to get there? How long do you think that's going to take? What kind of training do you need to have? And then from there to a senior and then to a design director and then, So I think all that's really important.
What did it require from you to really map out that path for every single person on your team? And how do you...
Well, we're still working on that, but what I would say
and to
is...
calibrate that, because
Yeah.
it's shifting and changing and evolving.
It takes time, and it takes time. It's one of these like catch-22s because you need the time to do it, but if you're too busy to do it, which I was for a long time, you don't get it done. But then you need to hire people, and you want to show them what you have, but you don't have time. So it's like you hire the people, you work on it all. So it kind of becomes this continuous flow. But it's really hard to step back from the business and sit down and say, "This is what I need to do," but you have to do it. And there's a lot of help out there. There's a lot of resources. I rely on my friends to, there's a lot of sharing that goes on in the design community today. So there are things out there to help you. You do not have to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of material out there to help you plot a path to growth. And a lot of great business coaches can help you do that.
I say, what's the starting point to helping a designer map out that path for their team members?
Well, first you have to know where you're going with your business. And if you have a vision for the business and say, I'm growing to 5 million or 10 million, then you're going to have to build a team to do that. And so then you have to start thinking about, and we've been going through this, we went through an exercise to develop an accountability chart with Elisa just last month. And it's really mapping out where are the positions that we're going to be hiring in the future? What are we doing this coming year? And you have to know exactly what those positions are, what you expect of the people that are going to fill those positions. And I think that's one of the first places you start is figuring out where am I going, who's going to be on the team to make me be able to fulfill on all the things that I'm hoping to accomplish. So, yeah.
we're going to open up the floor to questions in a moment, but I know, we titled this talk today, Salaries Revealed, and so I want to talk about numbers for a second. First of all, Gail, numbers range, right? They're regional, they change kind of depending on where you are. What were some of the numbers that really stuck out to you when you started seeing this report come back?
What was really interesting is that a lot of the seniors and the interior designers, both of those two levels, they were pretty close in numbers, and of course they're high.
Yeah.
And in some cases, I know this is really shocking to some people, but in some cases, probably more often than you realize, the seniors are often making close to the same thing as the owners of the business. So that's one of the things that is kind of stunning to people. Mm-hmm. And it's almost unavoidable because if you want to have some really great talent on your team that can run a project and be in charge of something and the owner doesn't have to be involved at all, then that is going to be a highly skilled person that's able to do project management, and they're going to earn a high salary. So I think that's one of the things that is pretty interesting. So, yeah, the numbers are pretty stunning.
I say, Elisa. Yeah.
What was that?
I think we got a lot of what are the numbers. Do you know?
Well, for example, and this is in all of you, by the way, we have we're going to have this little QR code. I highly recommend that you get your phone out and go ahead and take a picture of this. Maybe you can flip over to that, Ken. And just go ahead and sign up for this report because on here you'll see that a lot of the design professionals, I'll get it out, are earning between 50 and 100,000 right now, or 200,000. And juniors are most often earning about 50,000 or less. Seniors are earning between 50 and 100,000. And owners are typically earning above 100, but not as high above 100 as you might think. So there is a lot of pressure on that higher end of the scale. But those people are the ones that, especially the more senior they are, the more they're bringing in terms of revenue for the company. So they really do bring a lot of value, and it's worth paying the higher numbers if that person can truly run projects.
Elisa, you're nodding, but what kind of, I know you said you doubled salaries, you added people. What kind of math did you have to do internally to feel confident moving forward?
So I'm in the New York area, so that just means goes right up. So a lot of friends of mine who are in, Midwest or the, northeast, way northeast, it's different it really depends on your geographic location. So in New York, when we went to hire senior designers, we were told, 80 to 150, like be prepared. So that's kind of the range that we started at. And I'm a big believer in big salaries. Gail knows. I used to give
She's
bonuses.
generous.
I know I'm really bad. I think people love to be. I love money. I love making money. My salary.
We should have started with that. Like, I love money, right?
My salary's not $100,000. I mean, I pay myself more. But I think everyone deserves to make a real good living wage, and that should go up and be commensurate with your experience. So I think our ranges for a designer, the mid would go like 60 to 85, because you can be at the designer level for a while. It's not just like a 1 year, 2 year thing. Senior designers like 85 to 150, 175. I don't know. I mean, the sky's the limit. It's like doesn't. And then design director, it depends so much on their level of experience, what they're bringing to the table, how much responsibility they're taking on. Because it's not just designing; it's project managing, it's mentoring, it's creating new systems for the company. I mean, good senior designers can really be just bringing you so much knowledge that just saves you money and creates and helps the business grow. So, we start our design assistants at 50, but that can go up to 70, depending on their level of experience and kind of what they're doing and how it's moving along. Yeah. And then their bonuses, but that's New York. So we have 12. But they're not all designers. So, we have, sure. We have 2 design assistants, 1 interior designer, 2 seniors. I have an expediter who's also like a project manager. I have a creative director of new business development, who also does marketing. And then we have a business operations manager. And that's sort of and then we have an office admin. Then we also have a kind of off-site sort of contract with an HR person, with a studio webware person, and we have a fractional CFO, just hired them. And then we have a marketing person who's doing marketing kind of a strategy and helping us with that. So right now I'm looking for a marketing manager who can be on-site, who can take over, bring our social media in-house, because we also outsource that to someone else. And I think that's it, right? That's it. Okay.
I say, let's go to questions now. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you believe in yearly bonuses, and how do you address that?
For anyone on the recording who can't hear that, the question was, do you believe in yearly bonuses, and how do you address that?
I do believe in yearly bonuses. It is, and I just created a bonus plan. So what we do is we look at the profit of the company, and I do bonuses in December, even though I know you're probably not supposed to do that, but I do, because I kind of know by then what the year is going to look like. So we take a percentage of the profit, and then I divide it up based on seniority, on salary level, on some basic metrics like, are you fulfilling your hourly quotas? Are you doing the work? And then there's like a little subjective component, like how much have you added to the culture of the company and the success of the company over the year? And then I hand
Is
that
that
out.
something that does your team know kind of what that formula is? Or is that just like a surprise kind of?
Well, it is. I mean, I've talked about it in general terms,
Yeah.
but I have recently kind of codified it and am going to share it. But that's the way it's kind of always been. It used to be, before I started working with Gail, I would go to the bank and take out a lot of cash. And then I would put it in a bag with a card, and I'd be like, Merry Christmas. So
Imagine my surprise.
that's what I used to do.
I mean,
I don't do that anymore.
That's kind of fun.
Huh?
My
It was
boss
super
gave me
fun.
a
It was
bag of
really
cash
fun.
today.
I thought
Like-
it was fun. But but I don't do that anymore. So now you get a check and it goes through Gusto. But yes, I do believe in bonuses, and the bonuses come from the profit of the company, because I think that everyone helps with that. So
Do we have other questions? Go ahead.
I feel like we didn't really talk a
Yeah.
about salary survey on fees, so I know each area is different.
Yeah.
So I'm in New York, and those numbers definitely are not for New York. So to hire, let's say, 3 employees, I think most people are not averaging 12 employees, especially in New York. So to take on 3 employees, if we're talking about a survey on fees,
Yeah.
what do your fees need to be to justify hiring 3 employees?
I say,
Not, and I
Yep.
know it's concrete numbers. But I know, again, you need to retain them, you need to get them, you need to make them happy, you need to give them a bonus. But what are those actual numbers?
Yep.
I don't know, whatever it is.
cool. For the recording, the short version would be just kind of what do your fees need to be to hire 3 people in a city like New York, as an example?
Well, it's really not so much just that. It's really more about if say you're going to pay somebody $100,000, that person should be bringing in about $300,000 for your company. Okay, so you figure that whatever their rate is, whatever you're paying that person, you're probably getting a multiple of 3 to 4 times whatever you're paying them. And
Sometimes.
not always. Sometimes it's twice. But what I would say is you have to have some profit because that's gross profit. And when you and that's a little bit more technical if we are wanting to dive into a P&L, but you have to pay for overhead. And so when your employees must make you money, and so it has to cover the cost of operating the business because you have an office and you have expenses that are part of that. So you have to usually have about 3 to 4 times what you're paying that person coming into the company.
So I'll just jump in as a New York designer. So our senior designers get billed out at $200 an hour. And I think it's like 200, 175, 150 is kind of how we go down. And so that's, and Gail's absolutely right. They pay for themselves.
Yeah.
Then there's, they have to cover their overhead, which is basically doubling their salary between health insurance and, payroll taxes and all the other stuff that goes into their burden cost. So we kind of look at it that the salary, that the money they're bringing in and our time billing is like a third of the business, right? Pretty much. And then the rest of it is what we make on product, and we sell a lot of products, so that becomes product.
You're talking about hiring 6 employees, average 80,000 times 6. So are you making that before you hire those people?
Yeah, you have to have
You
money.
need a pipeline before you hire those people, yeah.
So usually you hire one at a time. I mean, honestly, that would be the way to go, and then have them start working, making money, and then you hire the next one. I had a big chunk of money because we've been working and killing ourselves for a long time, so I was able to do it. And Gail's formula also, just for you to know, is you have 4 billable employees to every 1 non-billable employee.
It's 1 out of 4.
1 of 3. Oh, sorry.
1 of 4.
1 of 4. So
Yeah.
3 billables. So if you want to hire an admin or an office manager, you need 3 designers billing to cover their salary and their own salary.
Hang on, we had a question over here up front first, and then I'll get to both of you. I see you.
Thank you. Did you have the average salaries for other positions like the expediter or director of operations?
I'm pretty sure we have that in the full report, which you'll see. It's coming out in November, so definitely get the QR code here, and you'll get that a little bit later on.
I say, and if you're looking for the what are people charging for this role in my region, that's in the report, correct? We could there's
It
kind
is
of
to an extent,
yeah.
but I would tell you that the one thing you can do, meantime, is to look online, and Glassdoor is a good place to look, and there are a couple of other different websites, and you can pull up the data for your area. So, or pay scales, that's another one. And somebody else mentioned something yesterday. Do you remember that, Ken? What was the name of that? We'll have to. Okay. And so there are a couple of places where you can check for your area. So we'll give you the data here in the report, but again, it's more regional and not necessarily for your city, and you can pull it up for your city by going online.
And I would just add to that real quick. If you're thinking about some of these positions that you're looking to hire internally, and you look at those resources, which actually are pretty accurate, you have to think about that's what that person's getting paid now. And if they're going to make a move, you need to bump up 10%. So what happens often, they'll talk to colleagues and, oh, senior designer, they're making 60 or mid-level 60,000 in Texas. And then they assume that they can hire someone for 60. You can't always, because if that person's working and making 60, they're not moving for a lateral. So whenever you look, you have to take all those surveys online and stuff, because they are accurate. That's what people are making in that moment, but that's not what they'll make a move for, which is a different conversation.
Great point.
Question right there. Yep.
I have two things. One, if you could just tell me what you bill out hourly yourself, and then also, can we talk a minute about hourly rates? Because not everyone I have is on salary, but on hourly as well.
So,
Yeah, say it, Lisa. I guess
go ahead.
we're asking you what you bill out for yourself, and then talking about hourly
people.
rates. Yeah.
So I bill out at $300 an hour, and because again, that's like our market. And our hourly people, our office admin was at I think 25, but we just bumped her to 35. So that's our. Then I'm not sure what the consultant people charge. I don't know what that is. A lot. Yeah.
The hourly ranges are all over the place, but typically we're seeing 150 to 200 is fairly average. But that's
What you're paying your hourly
Hourly
employees.
employee.
for what position?
So say a designer in like a West San Francisco, LA, or New York.
Are they a contractor or full-time, just broken down hourly? Because that's two. So a contractor is usually higher because, of course, they're not getting any of the benefits, any of those elements, and they don't have really the job security, right? So typically you'll pay almost 30% more hourly than you would if you were to break down someone's full-time salary divided by 2,080 hours, which is what you can, but you can't, and really, honestly, contractors is tricky anyways, because really, unless they are a true, they have their own business and contracting, they really shouldn't be contracting. They should be a full-time employee from a legal perspective. And we're seeing a lot of clients get into that situation where you can't really have all these contractors anymore. You have to have W-2 employees. But yeah, I would say it's higher just because they don't get the benefits. Yeah, there's IRS, there's a whole, for sure. But just as in general, I think in the industry, there was a lot of people that were just contractors, which really they operated in every other facet as a full-time employee. So, referencing that.
Do you have, when you're talking to designers who want to hire, what are the pros and cons of having someone as a contractor versus like deciding to bring someone into your team? How would you talk someone through, Gail, like weighing the risks, weighing the benefits?
Yeah, it's one of those things that having an employee is always your best bet if you can. And I don't love to have part-time people because they're only there part-time, and it means that if they're working on projects, it takes twice as long to get them done if they're part-time. So just because of the hours. And so therefore, I would like to see more full-time people that are employees because they're committed to the company. And a contractor could be working for a couple of companies, and then you have divided loyalties unless you have specific people, maybe somebody that's working for you and one other company. And so we, on our own team, and we're not doing design now, but we do have contractors. We even have 2 on our leadership team, but they've been with us forever, and they only work for us and maybe one other company. So just be really careful of that if you're working with contract people, because especially if you have deadlines, you can't always count on that person unless they have dedicated hours to your company. So do think about that.
I think that if someone has an entrepreneurial mindset and they want to open their own firm, they're going to go open their own firm no matter how much they love you. So there's nothing we can do about that. You hope that they want to stay as part of the team and that they like that, that kind of structure. But we've had designers who've gone off and done their own thing, and there's really nothing that you can do about it. I mean, I think I probably would have gone out and done I started out, I never worked for anybody else. I'm one of those organic people who started designing and then went to school and opened my own firm. I think working for a firm is amazing training, and as you said, the first 2 years you put so much into them, and then when they leave, you want to like stab yourself. But it happens, it happens, and there's nothing we can do. It's like it's life. It's like you just have to keep on going. So you make it as great as you can, but if they want to leave, they're going to leave.
I say, before we close, I want to say, I think it's so easy to hear that employees want more money, they want more effort, they want more energy, they want more engagement from a firm principal, and to just feel really deflated by that environment. But do all three of you also see opportunity in that? And like, where do you get excited when you look at kind of hiring today?
I'll let you start, Nadia.
Oh, sure. I think actually it's an incredible market right now because I think the roles have become more fluid and the conversations have been more inclusive with employees and employers. So it's a time where the hierarchy has changed. It's not like, well, you're just X, junior designer. It's more like you're valuable, what can you bring? And we're seeing a lot more owners sitting down with members of their team and asking for ideas and being things brought to the table that before they wouldn't be given that opportunity. So I think it's a really cool time for people entering the industry, but also for senior people who we're seeing more owners also really giving leadership and things that they wouldn't normally give up. And they're looking at the growth and really including everyone. So I think it's a time that COVID, there was a lot of great things that came out of it as far as how people had time to reassess their business, look at it, and I think change some things really for the better. So I think I'm optimistic.
I love that.
I would say that growing a team is an amazing thing. It's like it is an ability to build a family. And my kids are grown, so it's kind of fun for me. But I also think that you're creating something together. It also, as the more you grow, the more you, as the owner, have time to step back and do other interesting things. Like, you can get involved in other organizations, or you can really focus on fine-tuning all those things that you want to fine-tune, or creating bigger relationships with developers or builders or whatever. So it's a great opportunity as an owner as well, because you're right, you give people who are working for you, because you've spent a lot of time hiring them now, you give them more responsibility and you can say, you take care of this and I'm going to go do something else.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's really so exciting is to see how people are working toward building strong cultures and collaborating within their teams and mentoring. And mentoring has become a really big thing in the last couple of years. And so that is something that is, I think, very rewarding for the owners of the firms these days. And as you were talking about, you get to that point, you've got really solid people working for you, you can really take your firm to another level. And you need team to do that. You cannot do this by yourself. And if you want to be a name brand, or you just want to have a well-known brand in your area, you really need a wonderful team. So it's great to spend your time focusing on helping that person grow and engage with your firm. And for you, you asked that question about what if they leave? Well, some will, but there's always someone else that'll be great that's going to come to your team too. So there's always some good energy that comes in these transitions.
Amazing. Nadia, Elisa, Gail, thank you so much. This is
Thank
amazing.
you, Caitlin.
Yes.